Are we hearing? Yeah, we're here. We're good. We're good. Oh, we're gonna sit first. Okay. Okay, we'll sit. I'll be under the fan. Right, let's take city.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes. Alright. Okay. We are a little bit behind, but I think we'll be okay. Welcome everyone. Welcome to Grace UMC, especially our third Grace Talks, families and friends and our members. I hope you enjoyed today's dinner. Do you like it? Yeah. Yeah. There is one guy who thoroughly enjoyed today's dinner. That's my baby. Hot dog, chips, and cookies. He can say cookie. And watermelon. That's those items he loves. So thank you. My name is for like our Grace UMC members know me, but for our families and friends, my name is Peter Hyunho Park, the pastor of this church. We are delighted and blessed to have you here tonight. And tonight's presentation is our third of Grace Talks, which is Grace UMC's public lecture series, where we invite, inspire, and encourage our community members. Today we have Matt Macedo as our featured guest and speaker. Matt is working at Armstrong Garden Center in Dublin since 2015 as a gardening and certified plant specialist. Matt's primary profession is financial software applications developer, right? IT manager. He's also involved in community volunteering works for the past 9 years, especially school-oriented board positions and Lions Club. In 2012, he was vice president of Livermore Lions Club. I got this.
You look at my
I found it.
Yeah.
I'm not a speed stalker, but it's on the web. Okay. Though he's working only part-time at the garden center, his passion for gardening is neither part-time nor secondary, as he introduces himself as follows. Growing up, my family owned an independent nursery in the 70s and 80s, and I've been a lifelong gardener. The yard is a sacred therapeutic place for me. After a long day of work or a hard week, seeing what new flower has blossomed or watching all the insects bursting through a diverse yard is a rewarding payoff from our gardener's hard work. I've been with Armstrong Garden Centers for over 5 years, teaching and working with customers to help them bring the best solution to their gardens. And there are some pictures. Can you click this? Yes. There are some pictures from Matt's yard. So these are some pictures from his garden.
What are those?
Yes.
Everything's blue.
Okay. Yeah. And I hope tonight's talk helps you create gardens like his or the way you like to have it. Okay. Before we begin, I want to recognize especially Bob Park, who brought up this idea of having a Grace Talks on gardening first, and actually introduced Matt to me. And I also want to say words of thanks to Matt, our speaker tonight, who put up with me, who was constantly hunting him, chasing after or irritating him for getting a bio and other information about for this talk. And my school registrar is used to have this at the bottom of his email that says, he is irritating but helpful. Right? He's irritating but helpful. I hope my action is irritating but not painful. Hopefully helpful but nice talk. So I thank you, Matt, and now let's welcome Matt Macedo.
Drops the mic before you even get out here. That's very fashionable. Put it back for you all. You still hear me? Oh yeah. Okay, so that's true. One more thing I want to add. I'm a 47-year resident of San Ramon. Anybody here got me beat? Who's got me beat? You got me beat? You got me beat? Got sing? Awesome. So I've been here a very long time. And yes, I volunteered in all of the schools. My kids are now all graduated. God, that was a long journey, but it has ended. And my wife may actually say that sometimes she thinks I love the yard more than the children. We all know that depends on the day, right? Okay. So I work at Armstrong part-time, like we mentioned, and I actually do all of the classes at Armstrong. So we have free classes almost every Saturday. So if you like what you hear today, you can go online and see what talks we're doing. And most of them are in the mornings, either 8 or 9 o'clock, so keep that in mind. This week's class is succulents. All right, but today we're going to cover the gambit. I promise to keep it under 3 hours. I'm not sure what my limit was, but we'll keep it under 3. We're going to go all the way from soil to plants. And we're going to focus on what's hot for summer, what you all should be thinking about what you're doing. Are there any gardeners out here? Just before you go, a couple? All right. Everybody's got some nice yards.
Crystal, put your hand up.
There you go. The yard out front looks pretty good. Who's taking care of that? That's all volunteer. There you go. I know that's volunteer. I'm aware. All right. So, most important, I think we should start with is the earth, right? So when we talk about soil and how to get your plant started, as you know, in this valley, it's loaded with clay, right? And clay does a couple things really well. It can raise your foundation in winter, so your doors don't quite shut, and then it can shrink in summer quite a bit, so they do shut well again. You'll notice that in kitchen cabinets. Yes, we have a lot of clay. So, to be honest with you, clay is not necessarily the enemy. There are good features about clay. One is it retains moisture quite well, so that's good. That does help us, especially in our drought area. But it is very tough to get new roots started. So when you do start to plant your grounds, you want to make sure that you give those little baby plants a good fresh start. So we do that by amending the soil. And I brought up all these bags today because there's more to soil than just soil. Imagine that. But we start with the basics. Okay? There are 2 rules. Planting mix. Organic. And potting soil. Okay. Planting mix, the ground. Potting, in a pot. Novel. Keep that rule. That is always the rule. And yes, someone pointed out organic. I heard that shouted out there. There you go. So this is opposed to the petroleum plastic-filled dirt that we sell. So we get almost all dirt is organic, by the way. Somebody asked me what organic really means. Exactly. So your basic mixes. These 2 products, planting mix, potting mix, they can pretty much get you through anything, okay? Just so you know. Potting mix holds a little bit more moisture, okay? Planting mix, a little looser, breaks up the ground a little bit better. So that's why we use this one in the ground, this one in a pot. And then from there, you get a little crazy. We have specialty mixes. Like succulent mix, okay? So succulents, this is a more porous soil. Okay, so pro tip, by the way, if you have houseplants, you want to repot your houseplants with succulent mix.
Really?
Okay? Cactus mix, succulent mix, citrus mix, they're all very loose and porous. Because the problem with most houseplants is people kill them with love. They overwater. Okay? And the soil will hold a lot of moisture. So you want soils that are looser, so it drains right through. So that's your pro tip there on houseplants. And then we have super premium mixes. Fox Farm here, potting mix. I'll tell you the big difference between Fox Farm and your basic potting soil. We'll start with this. $20, $11. Okay, that's the big difference right off the bat. However, that said, if you were to do an experiment, and let's say you're a tomato farmer, okay? If you were to plant tomatoes with the potting mix in a pot versus the Fox Farm mix, I promise you, you will see a difference. You'll probably see, I dare say, at least a third better growth. Okay, because there's a lot of good things in these premium mixes that are actually you can addend the soil with. We're going to talk about amendments here and fertilizers, but a lot of it is already here. So you could save some time and energy by buying a premium mix. You know, it's always about budget and what you're doing and what's going on. But the premium mixes, and there's also a brand of Dr. Earth that's a premium. But Fox Farm is probably the #1 seller of premium in our nursery. So that is that. Now, what is this stuff over here? Looks like dirt, but this is not dirt. These are amendments, okay? Amendments. So these are things that help the soil in different aspects, right? So we have soil, which is what we know we need to grow in. This is sort of like a fertilizer, but it's not fertilizer, it's an amendment to your soil. You're going to add this to your soil for better results. And we're going to talk about, who's our vegetable gardeners out here? We got one. Okay, we got one. What do you amend your soil with? No.
Steer manure.
Steer manure. Steer manure. There you go. I should have prompted that. Do better. Okay. He did bring the bag in all truthfulness. So steer manures. So yes, a lot of folks will use manures in their vegetable gardens or even in their flower gardens to prep the soil because it's an amendment. It has a lot of sort of naturalized nitrogen. Now,
What do you use for grapevines?
what do you use for grapevine? You don't have to use hardly anything. They grow like a weed. Just so you know.
I know.
Just get them to a good start, and after they get going, you're good. Okay, but so here's the deal with manures. So I will get this question frequently and often. I am vegetarian, vegan, all organic, no pesticides, want nothing in my house. Where's your manure? Okay, so here's the deal with that. So manure normally comes from a source that is commercial. So you got to make sure your cows are very, very much organic or organically raised because their byproduct needs to be organic as well. Just always check your products, and Dr. Earth actually is one that is organic. So know where your manure comes from. Okay. I personally don't use steer or chicken manure. Those are the two popular manures. I actually like the little guy's manure, earthworms. So earthworm castings, this is called Worm Gold Plus because it has some kelp meal and some other additives to it. So this actually is great. You will notice you could dust your lawn, you could dust your ground cover, your potted plants, you could do handfuls of your potted plants. You'll notice as good, if not better, results of some of the fertilizers we'll go over. If you have citrus, your lemons, your limes, there's a lot of calcium inside of earthworm castings. In fact, there's more in this than there is in the citrus food. So earthworm castings, I think, is the liquid gold of the amendments. When in doubt, earthworm castings. Okay. And the other nice thing about earthworms is so far I don't think we're feeding them steroids. I'm not sure, and I don't think we're feeding them antibiotics, but I
bet my earthworms organic.
Yes, I bet they're organic. They are. And now you probably have those rubber earthworms at home.
So I got mine.
You got the real ones? Those little glow ones that go on the hook? Okay, earthworm castings. Big tip there. Okay, so we've learned two good tips. Succulent mix for your houseplants. Earthworm castings. And now we're going to move up to another. This is a top dressing. So it's not a soil and it's not an amendment. This is on top of the soil. This is compost. So you hear a lot about compost, and of course we all have green waste bins here in Santa Ramon. So you know that we make compost out of that green waste, right? So that's basically, before it gets to the complete soil process, we can turn into nice, rich, organic compost. And when you read especially about natives or drier plants, a lot of times they don't really need a lot of fertilizer, but they call it a side dressing of compost once or twice a year. That's what they mean. Putting this on top and then watering as the water settles through, you get the great nutrients that bleed into the ground on your compost. And compost also, like mulch, which we're going to talk about, will help keep the water in summer, keep the weeds down in late winter, early spring here. So it will help with that for sure. Help your vegetable crops in the same manner. Keep your weeds out, keep your moisture in, keep the heat away. And then we're going to get to this guy in a minute. Also on your top dressings, which this is not a compost, but of course everybody knows this is bark or shredded redwoods or wood byproduct. You know, it's basically a much earlier stage of dirt. So mulch is great for keeping the weeds down for sure. Moisture again, moisture control. And you could walk on it, it looks pretty. It's a pretty nice thing to do. Now, a lot of folks will ask me, well, how often do I mulch? And I mulch my yard every other year. Okay, every other year. That way I don't have to do a lot of weedings. And if you do weed, it's much easier to pull weeds out of mulch than it is out of the ground. So that's another great idea there. So, mulch for sure. I prefer shredded redwoods. I get that a lot. I prefer the shredded just because it holds a lot more moisture. But if you have pets, sometimes the shreddeds will get all over the pet fur. Now, very, very popular is the black mulch. Folks always say, I want the black mulch. We do not sell black mulch. 2 reasons. The larger box have the proprietary rights to black mulch. And remember, how is the black mulch black? Does anybody know? It is dyed.
Oh.
It is dyed. So here is your mistake that I made. I bought black mulch once, and I have a Australian Shepherd who's very white and furry. Within hours, that dog was black. So yes, it is dyed, and it will come off. Again, if you're going organic, try to stay away from your dyed mulches. Okay. They also have bright red as well, which is also dyed. So you can read, packaging almost always tells you. Okay. This guy right here, beets peat. It's called quorum. Beets peat. This is a box. So this is the equivalent to 2 bags. Okay. So you add water to that, and it will turn into 2 bags worth of soil. So why did I bring it? Because in the wintertime, when I'm doing most of the work in the yard, actually, as late winter comes, I will begin to build my pots. And in my pots, because you know it can get hot here, with the exception of this year, it gets normally, this is not uncommon to see a few 100-degree days by now. So when you're planting in pots, which I have about 100 pots in my yard, my wife doesn't really appreciate that. But hey, so I like to make sure that on a hot day that they're not going to shrivel and die. So I will treat with the cocoa husk, okay, beets peat, cocoa husk, that's what it is, from the coconut. With this, some potting soil, and some earthworm castings. So this is my ultimate recipe for potted plants, okay? And it will help you hold the moisture. In fact, you'll be surprised how infrequently you need to water, even in a heat wave. We've got a question already. What do you got?
You know, it's also amazing in you. So, say you're going to start a new garden.
Okay.
How do you layer it? What do you start? What's at the bottom, and what do you bring to the top?
You mean as far as soil?
What you have in front
So
of you.
if you're going to start at the bottom and new in the ground, you're going to go planting mix. Okay. And then if you're growing something that you really like, flowers or some vegetables, you're going to amend with something like the earthworm castings, right? And then you're going to top dress with either a compost, if it's vegetables. If it's just a shrub, you're going to top dress with a mulch. And that's from beginning to end there. And the other thing about beets peat here, so it's called beets peat because most folks, especially if you've been in gardening for a long time, peat moss, you know, the big peat bogs, were very popular. So this comes from coconut husk, which is more sustainable and more renewable. So that is the other nice reason to use the beets peat, because this comes from coconuts.
You said for the potted plants,
This-
the beet, the worm casting, and what else?
And the potting mix.
And the potting mix.
Yeah, exactly. And now you could substitute the potting mix with a premium mix, some other things. Just the bottom line is this will help add some moisture retention to those pots. Now there are situations where you don't want that, but we won't talk about that today.
They just mix all 3.
Mix all 3. I do, if you want to do percentages, 10, 20, and then the rest, the 70 on your actual mix itself. Okay.
Did you say that Worm Gold Plus works for the lawn too?
It does. It does. I sprinkle it. So I have some nice ground cover. I have some ground cover that I'm growing this year, dichondria, which you remember dichondria from the 70s perhaps. And I take and I sprinkle, just a handful over the top, very thin layer. I water it in. It works They explode. They really do enjoy it. You could try it on your lawn as well. I brought some other natural things for your lawn as well. We're going to talk about. So I'm going to slowly segue. Is it okay if I pile these here? Or? Okay. Question? Go ahead. What garden soil is just a generic term. For potting soil? So you mean like Miracle Grow? What's the difference between a Miracle Grow or a...
No, it's called garden soil. So you showed two different things there,
Potting, planting.
and plant.
Correct.
Is it equivalent to garden soil?
No, garden soil is just like, I'm a human. What does a human mean to you?
So it's neither one of those.
It's just generic terminology for soil. Exactly. It's just a general. So I'm gonna keep one. I'm gonna keep this one. Thank you, gentlemen. Roadies, yes. Everybody needs roadies. Another question. Go ahead.
Just a question on your lawn with that mulch.
Okay.
So you put it on there, but it would be a while before you could actually mow it, right?
Earthworm castings? No. They'll bleed into the ground almost
That's not
instantly.
the earthworm, that's a mulch.
Oh, you wouldn't want to mulch your lawn.
No, it was earthworm that you put on it.
Yeah, earthworm castings.
Just the garden.
Just, yeah, exactly. Okay, well, we're going to get ready to talk about fertilizers. I will line them up appropriately. One day we get the microphone good. All this wonderful. And yes, there will definitely be a quiz at the end. Okay, got that settled. So you're going to find when we talk about fertilizers, it's going to be the same thing. There are fertilizers and there are amendments, and there are special fertilizers for special situations.
Are you gonna get to weed killers later?
You know, I actually didn't bring weed killers, but I will absolutely talk about weed killers at some point. Okay. Whew. All this stuff. We're going to start with the basics. So Miracle Grow, we've already tossed that there a few times. Everybody knows Miracle Grow, right? Anybody who grew up from 70 and beyond, Miracle Grow was the stuff. When I was a little kid in the nursery, I remember my grandmother making these giant garbage pails of Miracle Grow, and we'd walk around with pitchers. Right about the time Marble Man said it was good for you too. But it's okay. Miracle Grow. Non-organic. Man-made. Okay. These are organic. Okay, so they come from the earth, but they're, of course, man-handled. So the biggest difference here is, think of it this way. This is a sprint. This is a marathon. Which means if you use your high in nitrogen fertilizers, which is generally your Miracle Grows or non-organics, liquid fertilizers, you're going to get fast results. You're going to grow quick. This is a over time, once a month apply, handful here, handful there, and you're going to get the same results, but they're going to come at a slower pace. Okay, that's the big difference.
They sustain longer.
They sustain longer. Yes, they can be absorbed easier sometimes.
The big difference is that.
But this one is down to earth, and we have Dr. Earth. It says Earth, so it must be good. Yes.
So if you had a plant and it had some buds coming, and you put the Miracle Grow on, they come right away.
They would generally you're going to want to fertilize your budding plants just before they bud, so they get their start. But yeah, they're going to come right away. So here's what's going to.
But with the other stuff,
Here's
they'll
what's really
come,
gonna
but they
happen.
maybe will last longer.
So here's what's really going to happen. You're going to put your Miracle Grow on your roses. Okay. We're going to use that as a budding flower plant. And what you're going to do is you're going to grow really big leaves and really weak flower heads.
Oh, yeah.
Because they've used the nitrogen fast because these are high in nitrogen.
Ah.
So you're going to grow beautiful greenery, and the flower actually will get weak and get floppy. And how many people here know about aphids? Everyone's got aphids. Okay, this is how you get aphids. You over-fertilize. Okay? Yeah, because you're creating softer growth. and you're creating it faster than what's normal and natural in the world. There are some schools of thought that say if you don't fertilize at all, you'll keep your bugs in check. I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but it is very true, you'll grow fast growth. So we use Miracle Grow on our tomatoes. So anybody want to guess what will happen there? You're going to get really big leaves and small fruit, which is why we use slower paced items like the organics, because you'll get better results steadier. Now,
I thought you said you used it on tomatoes.
no, I would never use
you
I would never use an inorganic on a vegetable. Now, I would never use an inorganic on a vegetable for one main reason, because where does that vegetable end up besides the birds and the squirrels and the rats? In your mouth, correct. You just always think about that. That's why, to be quite frank, you're going to find me talking more about good soil, because I would prefer you have the soil. Because really in gardening what we're doing is we're giving the plants nutrients that it can absorb. So you don't really want to necessarily, you're not fertilizing the plant, you're fertilizing the soil. Think of it that way, you're building that building block that it can really appreciate. Now, that doesn't mean that Miracle Grow is not okay. I use Miracle Grow for many years. And you can use it on things like maybe you do have a budded out flower and you want to do some Miracle Grow. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe you have what's a good example here? This Rebecca behind me, Black-Eyed Susan. Maybe it's looking a little wilty. Throw some Miracle Grow on it. Okay. Good stuff.
Steroids.
Some steroids. Exactly. It's very steroidal. Now, you have some natural choices that are sort of Miracle Grow like. And we talk about NPK, right? Does anybody know what the NPK is? On every single fertilizer, you see these numbers, the 4, the 6, the 2. Nitrogen is the first, right? Anybody go for the second?
Potassium.
Phosphate, last one's potassium. So you guys got it. Good job. Okay, so you think of nitrogen, that first number, that one is the one that gives you the that's your steroid, that's the food, the immediate food source. The others help build the bone, so to speak, the cellular growth, the roots. So those are basically what the numbers do. So this is a 4, a Miracle Grow is usually a 20. So quite a bit more. So it's a much faster growth. There was a time when I cared about my lawn before the droughts came, and we all had to kill them. But when I cared about my lawn and I wanted them really green, every spring I would go with ammonium sulfate, which is man-made, and it's a nitrogen count of about 25. I would take that and some ironite, and I would have the greenest lawn ever. But it's not necessarily good for the world. However, it made me feel good at the time. Right? Short-term gain. Okay, so in the fertilizers, I brought a couple different categories, and we're going to talk about some interesting things here. We have all-purpose, okay? We have some specialty fertilizers, and then we have some additives. This one happens to be a little bit of both. And then we have some liquid versions, which I will talk about in a second. Okay, all-purpose. People ask me, I'll watch people go out of the nursery. This is probably a bad advertisement right here. But I'll watch people go, they have citrus fertilizer, they have tomato fertilizer, they have flower tomato, they have fruit tree fertilizer. And I just think, well, why? Right? Because if you really buckle down and read the ingredients, they're really splitting hairs on the differences. Right? So it's generally,
Marketing.
yes, it's very much a marketing play. So you can get away with certain things. Now there are times, blood meal. Blood meal is an all-natural product. It's a 13 nitrogen, nothing else. So this is good for the lawn to get it that green way. If you don't want to use an ammonium sulfate or a Miracle Grow or a Scott's, you can do blood meal. Fast, pure, clean energy for the plant. And then you got the all-purposes. 222 seems really low. But over time, again, we're building the soil. It does help out. And then you have something called BioLive. So it must be cool, right? BioLive, right? I mean, what the heck does that do? BioLive. It's called BioLive because it has a little bit of something called mycorrhizal fungi, okay, and more bacterial growth. So mycorrhizal fungi, you will see that is a key word in the new nursery trend. Mycorrhizal fungi is fungus, right? Everybody knows fungus, mushrooms. So the largest kingdom is fungus, right? The largest organism in the world. Anybody know what it is? It's a fungi. That's actually an organ. It's a carnivorous fungus that eats trees. It's 2,200 square miles. It's one plant. So, and it is a fungus because the flower of a fungus is Mushrooms. Right. So the part of the fungus we usually don't see is underground. So, and what the fungus does, mycorrhizal fungus is a very fancy word for fungus. What it does is it wraps around the roots of all of these plants. So all of these plants have a fungus inside them as well. So they're not all bad. Fungus is not all bad. And what it does is it helps break down certain nutrients and enzymes and amino acids to deliver to the plant. Just like what do we have in us more than we have anything? Does anybody know? Bacteria. Right, we have more bacteria in us than we do blood cells. So it is very much that same exact symbiotic relationship. It's taken millions of years to create that relationship. Now it's been proven, it's in his TED talk about that mycorrhizal fungus is the internet for the plant world. So it has been proven if I'm a tree, if I'm a pine tree here, and there's a pine tree over there, 300 feet or from us, that if I'm in the shade, that tree that's way over there that's in the sun will send me carbon molecules, right, through the fungus.
Underground.
In the ground, underground. It's been proven. So, do plants talk? Yes. In a sense, they do talk. They send chemical signals just like we do. So,
Just their own kind?
no, that's a good question. I don't actually know how far science has gone to see if they're sharing between different species, but definitely in groves of trees, they do share nutrients. So, yeah, you're the whisperer. You were the whisperer. So, the fungus whisperer. The fungi whisperer. Is that yes?
We have huge redwoods across the street from us.
Yep.
And all our white birches are dying.
Yep.
Why?
Because birches almost always die. That's the
Oh.
short answer. And be honest with you,
How many-
redwoods generally don't do that great either here.
Well, these are doing great, but how many years of birch usually?
Birch trees get what's called a birch beetle. So it's just a matter of time before that birch beetle finds your birch tree. And once it does, you're done.
I've been noticing a lot of the birch trees.
There are, you notice very few nurseries sell white birches anymore. Because the birch beetle.
You got water.
And you do have to water. The drought didn't do birch trees any favors because it did weaken them. But on the fertilizer, so we have additives. So the other piece here, we have humeric acid. Humeric acid is a very, 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 very concentrated form of basically carbon. It's a very bioavailable source of plant nutrients for your plant. So if you had tomatoes and you wanted to be really going to have a great year, you'd use some great soils, and for an experiment, you could put the humeric acids handful on your tomatoes and one without, and see how it grows. You'll notice a difference if you use humeric acid. It's definitely a good thing. Now, I love to fertilize because I just feel like I'm productive. I don't know, it's just a thing. So I like liquid fertilizer. I'm actually not a huge fan of pellets. Okay, these are all pellets. Wintertime, I don't mind pellets because I know it rains enough to actually get down into the dirt. I like to see my results, and I like to walk around with a watering can. So I compromise. I used to use Miracle-Gro for years. So I switched to this product called Seagrow, and it's all-purpose plant food. It's got micronutrients. It's made from seaweed and kelp. And it's 16-16-16, so it is considered an all-purpose. And what I will do, because I like to fertilize every couple weeks, I use a half a dose, so it's 8-8-8. And I like to go out and fertilize all my beauties. We'll talk about what plants need what in a short while too. And then you have things like seaweed extracts. These help with micronutrients for plants. And there's one in particular here we're going to talk about in a short while that benefits from this. So, fertilizer, they are important. And there are things that will help your plants come out of shock. So we don't ever fertilize dry plants. Nope. So they'll suck it up and burn it. Okay? We don't fertilize plants that are in shock. We feed them things like seaweed or kelp to help them much better. Or things like VF11 or Super Thrive, right? I think that VF11 and Super Thrive, those companies are both close to 80 or 90 years old. So I have no idea what's in them, but they do work.
How can you tell if a plant's in shock?
Look at this. No, they start to get droopy, and they just don't behave properly. You'll get it in a nursery, and it's beautiful and happy. Maybe you put it in a hot spot in the yard, and it just starts to immediately look sad. That's shock. Generally comes at planting time. Or if you went away on vacation and the neighbor kids didn't water.
How
Shock.
do you cure?
VF11 and Super Thrive are two good products that will help bring them out of shock. So before a heat wave, anybody here who has a lot of roses or grows roses, if there's a heat wave coming, because roses don't like above 90, they stop producing. If you treat your roses with some VF11, maybe a week before the heat wave or a few days if you know, you'll notice that they get through the heat wave slightly better. So try that out one day. All right, before I move into some of these beautiful plants behind me, do we have any other questions about fertilizers? In the end, I'll talk about products. Yes?
So roses should, a rose bush should bloom all summer?
I don't know. Should it?
I don't know.
I don't know. Does it? You know. So roses are a funny little critter. There are hybrid tea roses, grandma's roses, hybrid teas, isn't that classic hybrids? Mr. Lincoln, hello. Generations of Mr. Lincolns out there, hybrid tea. And then we have the newer roses, which are grandifloras and floribundas, right? Big flower, grandiflora, multi-flowers, floribunda. They generally are smaller, and they flower longer than a hybrid tea. But there's exceptions to those rules. So if you're a rose grower, and you notice I didn't bring any roses,
Yeah.
because we could be here for a long time talking about different roses. And this is a poor time of year to plant roses. Never plant roses midsummer. It's just not a good idea because they'll shock.
No, but if they're elderly.
If they're elderly. So a brief word about roses before we talk about these plants. After 10 years, they generally aren't as good. Now that's not always the case. But roses are not meant to really go, 50, 60 years.
So
It's
I mean
just-
like
just
4 or
the
5
case.
years.
Yeah, so you're good. So roses come in blooms. Big wave in early spring. Another wave, June.
Yeah.
Another wave, usually September.
Oh, okay.
Okay, grandifloras, floribundas bloom periodically in between, like strawberries. So there's June blooming strawberries, and then there's strawberries that bloom all season. So different types.
So-
Tomatoes, same thing.
So BF11 might help it.
For your roses, no, for your roses, I'm going to point you more to a direction of treating the soil, which would be your worm castings.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you'll get a much darker color, much better color. And roses, of course, they're very hard. It's tough to kill a rose. Number one, if you kill a rose, you're doing something special. Prune them properly. No, go ahead.
I use coffee grounds on the roses.
So you use coffee grounds on the roses, but they don't need acidic soil.
I have lots of coffee grounds.
I know. You need to buy lots of blueberries. Blueberries is where we use the coffee ground. It's like, or azaleas. Yeah, I think I have one of those behind me. So,
What about eggshells?
what about eggshells? I don't like walking on them.
I don't either, but I heard that it's good to put them in your garden, is it not?
Who told you, the egg guy?
I think it was somebody at a plant store.
So there is some theories to eggshells. Plant a tomato, put an eggshell on the bottom. Helps absorb the calcium. It's on the internet. It may be true. It's an old tale. It's been around for a long time. Now the other benefits to eggshells are earwigs. Crumble some eggshells, put it around the base of a plant if you have earwig problems. Earwigs have a hard time coming over. Anybody here have bed bugs?
Not anymore.
That's good for bed bugs.
Because
So you put eggs in your bed?
now I'm going to tell you a fascinating story about bed bugs. So bed bugs, if you have bed bugs, which none of us ever actually really know, but they are coming this way, especially in Northern California, right? They're all over Berkeley, Oakland now. So bean leaves, like regular old pole beans, long green beans, string beans, they're leaves. So what they do is you put around your bed all the bean leaves, because bean leaves are quite large and they're prolific. What happens is that when the bed bugs crawl, they get stuck in the leaves. Because there are these micro hairs on leaves, on the bean leaves, that they hook to.
Well, where
And
would you get bean leaves? You'd have
You
to-
gotta grow beans.
You gotta grow the beans.
Yeah, you gotta grow beans. Well, we won't talk about that. But anyway, so there are folks right now who are emulating nature, and the number one way they're trying to actually trap bed bugs is with a synthetic bean leaf. That's essentially what it's going to do. And you put it around your bed. So plants are pretty amazing.
I have a little meandering orange.
Okay. All right.
It doesn't grow
I think we're in a bit. So there's multiple things we talk about there, right? Citrus needs at least 8 hours of sun. Did we get that? We check the boxes. Did we plant it right in the clay, or did we give it a good start? Okay. If you put it right in the ground, it takes them an awfully long time to root out. So if you improve the soil, they can root out better. So citrus takes at least 3 years, like most shrubs and trees do, just to sort of get out there. And then after they get out there, then it takes another couple of years to start the growth cycle. But I would say if it's really unhappy, it's probably the soil. It's probably really compacted around it. You just can't get out. Well, it might be too late, right? It's been there how long? I would dig it out. So have somebody dig it out and see. I bet the roots are still very close, especially if it hasn't grown. And then improve the soil around it and plant it back in. Now, I wouldn't do that now. For a citrus, I would do that in September. Okay. So, yeah.
What's that shelf life for Oasis?
So this is somewhere near a Twinkie. Thrown at us. So this
What was that?
is somewhere near a Twinkie shelf life. Okay?
Forever.
Right?
2,000.
Yep. Something like this actually isn't too far behind it. It's compressed. As long as it doesn't get moist or wet or sit in the sun very long, it's probably a decade, to be quite honest. Very long. So, a long time. Now, a lot of times the powdery stuff, and that's sealed, they get clumpy. Once they're clumpy, they're hardly usable. And that takes a few years as well. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. All right, so I brought some beauties behind me. We're going to start with new and cool. That's going to be our first one. So this beauty here, anybody want to guess what this is? Not a black-eyed Susan, but it looks like one. This is a sunflower. There we go. Sunflower. So this is a brand new introduction this year. It's called a Sunbelievable. Sunbelievable is the name of it. Sunbelievable. So here's the thing. If you've ever planted sunflowers, which I recommend everybody here does, I'm going to talk about that because I brought some seeds. They do one thing. They bloom, and their cycle's over. So they're very short-lived once they bloom. Okay? It's like Christmas. You wait a long time, you get this beautiful package, and then it's done. But Sunbelievables is a new hybrid, and what happens here is this will bloom continuously.
Really?
Yep, as long as you deadhead. Deadhead we're going to talk about in a bit. You take the snippers out and cut the ones that have already bloomed. It will keep coming. So, a quick story on these. I was very excited because it took 8 years of research to get these into market. So it's a very long time. So we'll talk about that later. But the life of a plant discoverer is a very long road. It's a very long road to get a plant to market. So imagine this had taken 8 years, right? And I've waited patiently because I am a garden hunter for sure. I wait for the newest thing on the market to try it out. I buy these in I bought these in March, right? I bought 4. They're not cheap. So an annual is normally a very cheap plant. And this one is $16.99. So it's a very expensive annual. So I bought these, I planted them in my plant. I waited, and they all died. Because our darn spring was so cold, it never got warm enough for a sunflower. So, good news, a month ago I replanted these, and they're doing wonderful because the heat has finally come. So sunflowers need heat. They need sun and they need heat. And when you grow sunflowers, not necessarily this one, you'll notice if they don't get much sun, they grow small. If they get lots of sun, sometimes they'll grow tall. So right now is peak of sunflower season. So if you were to go in my yard today, I have several hundred sunflowers because I grow them every month, so I have a succession of them. I have some now that are 17 feet tall. Yeah, it always amazes me. And they branch out just like this. It's like a forest, it really is. And then I have some that get 5 and 6 feet tall, and it always fascinates me. And sunflowers are beautiful because after they bloom, they'll cross-pollinate, and you can take those seeds and grow them again next year. Question?
We have ants and aphids all over our really tall.
Everybody loves a
Is that
sunflower. It's very normal. Birds love sunflowers. Before birds, this is a smaller sunflower, but before they bloom, finches always strip the leaves because they're using them for their nest. Ants love them. They harvest aphids because aphids are great. Bees and bumblebees and hoverflies and carpenter bees, they love to get the pollen off of your sunflowers. This is pollenless, but your normal sunflowers. So they're very great for the yard. They bring a lot of traffic. And of course, after they dry out, if you leave the flower heads, the seeds are eaten by the bees. So this is a cornucopia for your animal wildlife, the sunflower. And this is a brand new introduction. I recommend, there's still plenty of time in summer with the heat of summer here. So these would do great in the yard. You put them in a container. Now, real sunflowers, the reason why you never see big old sunflowers really sold in nurseries, except for a few, is because they don't like the roots disturbed. So that's why you normally see them, as I disturb the roots. They're not big fans of somebody coming along and touching them. So that's generally why, and they grow so darn fast, you don't usually see them in a nursery.
So you can put those in a pot?
That one you can put in a pot. And I I jump ahead. So here's some sunflower seeds. So if I were to start these in these little peat pellets, it's a very simple product. It's peat, you add water, they pop up like this. You take the seeds, and within, if I were to plant them on Saturday, by the next Saturday I actually could put them outside. That's how fast sunflowers grow. They're very quick. I watch some friends' kids every Saturday, and they're quite young, and we plant sunflowers. I'll have them start them on Saturday, and the very next week I'll sometimes get them right in the ground. So it's a very, very fun thing for the little ones. And of course you see that sunflower grow from this to that.
Do they need full sun?
They need full sun. Sunflowers definitely need full suns or they'll mold. So that's the new addition there. That's a great one this time of year. We're going to talk about two main groups. Does anybody know the main groups we would say plants fit into? It's sort of generic, but
Succulents and something else.
yeah, that's a good guess. So
Annuals.
annuals and perennials. Somebody said it out there. Good job. You get the prize. Get a prize. Okay. An annual means it's 1 year. It's really one season. It's one season. There are all sorts of different timelines on annuals. Okay, and then we have perennials, which means they're going to come back. Not necessarily forever. It's like, the rest of life. But a long time. And there are some perennials that are longer lived than others. Okay, so this is a perennial. This is your classic late summer fall perennial. This is a black-eyed Susan or Rudbeckia. And there's a lot of different hybrids of these. They're all yellow and dark, but different sizes, small, tall, perennial. And another back to summer season fall perennial, which you'll often see with black-eyed Susan. Anybody know what this is? Nope. This is, when we have a cold, we take this. That's your hint.
Echinacea?
Echinacea. Very good job. Coneflower, echinacea. So they've been hybridized, and the original echinacea was either purple or white. This is a red one. What's this one called? Sombrero salsa. So must be good. Very Californian. Very Californian, this one. This is a perennial, and it lasts a long time. And this is a classic pairing. So a lot of times you'll see I want a nice perennial garden for end of summer, fall, and you would plant these two together. Now,
Do they stay at that height? Or
they do not. So normally this would be about a 2.5, 3 footer. These are a little shrubbier than normal. They're usually about 2 feet. So, and perennials, if you're a perennial gardener, you're going to look great right now, but if you come to the yard in winter, it's going to look like this carpet. Okay? Nothing there. Very bare. So the perennial gardener, don't visit in December. Bottom line. That's your perennial. So, in contrast to that, we'll talk about some of these great plants. Bring them up here. Those are annuals. That is correct. These are summer annuals. I'm just going to talk about a few that I brought. So these are very summer annuals. So normally when you plant your yard or your garden, you're planting for the next 90 days, right? So if you're going to plant these now, they're going to hit peak in September, okay? And then they're going to start to peter out October, November. That's sort of how you want to plant it. And this is one of my favorite annuals because they come in all sorts of shapes, sizes, colors. This is a zinnia. So a zinnia loves high heat. So they do great in our valley. Love high heat. They do take some water. They can be, this is a profusion orange, which is about this tall, okay? And then you can grow a state fair zinnia. So state fair zinnia gets as tall as me, okay? It's a 5-footer. So state fair zinnia, I'll mix those with my sunflowers. So I'll have these beautiful colors of large flowers. Yes, and if you do end up falling in love with zinnias, the commercial growers like ourselves, we only carry a handful of different varieties, but you can seed them, and they seed extremely easy. You can seed them, and you can get all sorts of different color, shapes, and sizes of these zinnias. Beautiful reds and pom-poms. They're very, very prolific variety of plant with zinnia.
Do they seed themselves around your yard?
They're not invasive in any way. You may get 1 or 2 seeds that are successful, but to be quite frank, if you don't, you're always better to do your seeding in one of these to start them, you get a much higher germination than just out in the wild. So,
Matt,
yes.
if annuals are annually,
Mm-hmm. Seasonally.
why, you would have a garden that would have annuals and then
Perennials. And then,
behind them, right?
yep. And then you'd have foundation shrubs
Oh, okay,
and trees and ground covers.
okay.
All of those items you mix and match. Right.
Okay.
So I'll tell you a great trick if you want to have a lot of annuals. Grow your annuals in pots so you trade them around and mix them in with your foundation backgrounds. You know, your trees and your shrubs.
How about bulbs? Are they considered an annual?
Which one? I'm sorry.
Bulbs?
Bulbs? So I got a bulb behind me. We're getting there. Coming. Okay. Marigold. All right. Everybody knows marigold. So, tell you a couple things about marigolds. They're not my favorite, number one, although this is a beautiful one. This is a beautiful color. It's called Safari. There you go, Safari. So, marigolds have been hybridized. They've been hybridized just like, dog and cats, right? They have been hybridized to high heaven. So they're not quite as good as they used to be. This marigold will grow to about yay tall. It will bloom somewhat, and you'll pop the blooms, and then it'll sort of peter out. So I'm not a huge fan of the marigolds as I used to be. Now, if you can seed your marigolds, which is sort of a long thing to do because we usually want instant color, they're generally much better. There are certain places where you can buy true marigolds, which means they're more of the original heirloom sort of marigold. So in the wild, the marigold is actually 4 foot tall, just so you know. And their flower heads are generally this big. Okay, African marigold. Okay, this is a French marigold because of the flower shapes. Those big pom-pommy ones, those are called an African marigold. And those naturalized or more wild strains are the ones that keep certain bad nematodes, which is little tiny microworms, away from your tomatoes and whatnot. So that's what they used to always plant, was marigolds in the tomato beds to keep those pests away. But the hybridized ones are not nearly as effective as the older varieties. So, but they're still a beautiful plant, and if you plant these in spring, your snails will be so grateful. Okay, because snails love these. You will plant them in the evening, they will not be there in the morning. So if you do plant them, snail bait, okay? Snail bait around them.
Gophers don't like those either.
Gophers generally don't like them because of the scent. That is correct. You will find that some gophers go against the rules, but yes, as a general rule of thumb. Okay, another great one. I just like the name. Portulaca. Portulaca. This one is called Cupcake Upright Lavender. So, Portulaca, which looks like a succulent. It has very, very thick leaves. It opens with the sun. So it opens up. I've already bored one. I'm just kidding you. Go. So these guys open up with the sun. Okay, and they're beautiful, bright, just knock your socks off color. So you take a Portulaca, because they're a back of summer plant, and you mix it with this guy right here, and you have a great display or your zinnias too. You have a great display in July, August, September. And this guy in my hand is called the Jolt Dianthus, another new introduction a few years ago. Jolt Dianthus. Now Dianthus is carnation family. Okay, so we're in the carnation family.
Are the buds green?
They are green. They're about to turn. It's all going to look like this.
Okay.
This whole plant will be pink. You won't even see the green. Beautiful color. Loves the heat. Another great one for our valley here. Jolt Dianthus. And it's not an annual or perennial. It's called a biannual, because why not? What it really does is it produces a bunch, and then it produces a bunch next year. Then it sort of dies out, and one of its babies springs from it, and then it goes again. So they live about every 2 years. I've had some of these actually in my yard for 5, and they're still going. So they don't all read the internet. That's the bottom line.
They didn't listen.
They did not listen. Jolt Dianthus. Fantastic plant. Okay, so these in my hand. I think did I bring another one? Yes. Oh, it comes equipped with a snail. So, because they love these. Snails love these. Look, it's already eating it. Put him right there.
We'll
So-
bring them to the farm next week. and
Bring him to the farm.
Yeah.
So these, if anybody knows, these are coleus. So coleus go extremely well with these, which are impatiens. Okay. So folks will come to me and say, well, what do I grow in shade? And the unfortunate, there's not a whole lot that grows really well in shade because flowery plants need shade. But by gosh, an impatient, which has been around many, many years, a few new varieties, but for the most part, this is your number one flowering shade plant. Yes, it's an annual, but it's okay. You can replant them every year. They grow very fast, and they like warm weather. So you plant these with your coleus. Some coleus get 4 foot tall, some get 18 inches, some stay micro. There are so many new beautiful hybridization and patterns of your coleus that you can almost get lost. This is called Campfire. It's a beauty. Has this nice sort of coppery, beautiful tones, right? This one, of course, has its dark undertones with these bright greens, right? It's called a Kong Junior. So, a little floppy in there.
The patients, is that an annual or perennial? Because
So it depends. You can get them to come back. If they-
because in Georgia, they all year round.
They come year round. If you get a really cold winter, they can die out. But generally, they look better if you do replant them, at least every couple of years, because you get that renewed growth from a new plant. But they can annualize over. And another pro tip here. So this variety is called Super Elfin Lipstick. So lipstick is the best producer of flowers. This guy produces like you wouldn't believe. So by the way, when they are producing, when we talk about annuals, and we talk about all of this energy that it puts out there to plant these things to bloom, it does need fertilization, right? That's why fertilizers do exist. And yes, you can use the soil amendments to make them better, which I do. But this is when my buddy Seagrow comes in, because I know that they're tired, because they're doing a lot of work here. So I'll fertilize them up, keep them going. Okay.
Now they have the big ones, the small ones, the shade, and the sun ones, right?
They do. They have sun patients, which are not really sun patients, just so you know. If you take a sun patient, throw it out there in that front yard, it's probably not going to do well because it's just too much sun here. But generally, so remember they write these labels for the entire country. So sun really means 8 hours. And of course here we can get 14 hours. So just keep that in mind.
And remind me, what zone are we?
Well, Sunset Garden Book, we're 14. This is at 14. So that's what we are. So coleus, definitely a beautiful shade plant that has undergone quite the renaissance in recent years. Now, here's my next guy I want to talk about here. I'm going to talk about another great producer in the summertime here. These guys right here.
Do you do house calls?
I do house calls. Armstrong does house calls.
So
Believe it or
is
not.
that a ground cover?
Now this is called Kufia or false heather. So I like to bring this guy out for a couple reasons. It's a pretty plant. It's green. It loves the back of the summer. It's another great producer with these other these guys that I've showed off. But it's great for bees. So bees love this. Okay, and bees are important. So this, pretty commercialized, really doesn't do much for the pollinators. Sorry. Same with this one. Doesn't do much for the pollinators. Doesn't do much for the pollinators. Butterflies, yes. This one's been pretty hybridized. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a newfangled one. Not a great pollinator compared to the natural ones. But this,
What is it again?
Kufia, or false heather.
How many
Kufia.
birds like that?
Hummingbirds like this one, which is why I brought it. Peter, yes sir. Oh, we're good. Okay. So the sage here is a great one for your hummingbirds because they will eat the nectar out of that, come to it all season long. Lantana, another great one. This will bring all your butterflies to your yard. Okay? And this purple one, this will grow pretty much year-round out here and will bloom nearly year-round. So when folks ask me for nearly year-round color, I usually will always give Lantana as one of those. Tough as nails. It's a ground cover. It'll grow about 6 to 8 feet over time.
What was the hummingbird name?
This is called Hot Lips.
Hot Lip.
Hot Lips Salvia.
She was on
Salvia.
TV.
Salvia.
She was
Yep.
on MASH.
Hot lip salvia.
This guy here, Peter cuts me out here. We're going to be out in a few minutes here. We have Gumfrenia, fireworks. Great perennial around here. Blooms this time of year. You mix this with your taller perennials. This hot pink. Pretty awesome. Okay. It's called Gumfrenia. Fireworks is the variety. Great plants.
Delphinium.
Delphinium, big one in your early spring. Delphinium. Does better in other parts of the country than it does here. So how much time do we have? 2 minutes, okay. I mean, I could talk longer, so I don't know how much longer you want me to go, or you want to cut them off.
No, just continue.
5 minutes more.
Do you want me all finish?
Try 15 minutes more.
Okay, how about 10?
We'll split it down the middle.
Well, I don't want anybody to miss Big Brother tonight, so on TV. Set your DVRs. But we'll continue, and Peter can pull me off when we get there. I want to hit a couple more that are very important.
Can I ask about the plant that's on the piano? The one that's cast?
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah,
Yeah, I forgot about it over there. So that's an annual.
really.
Yes, that's an annual vine. It is called Thornbergia. Its common name, just to really screw you up, is black-eyed Susan vine, named after this. Okay. So, and it's because it's got the black
And
eye.
it completely dies at the end of the year?
Completely dies at the end of the year. So, but you know what? From start to finish, 8 feet, no problem. Couple months. Beautiful, 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 beautiful summer plant. I have these in my yard. Sometimes you get them to winter over, but they don't necessarily grow as well.
You have to stake it.
No, you have to give it something to ramble up or crawl up. Okay?
Does it like a lot of water or?
Does like water. Absolutely likes water and good drainage, okay? On these guys. But I want to talk a few minutes about tropics, okay? Because your tropics are super popular here these days. So tropical flowers, mostly because we have a lot of diversity in the valley now, as you all know. And with diversity, folks want to see what they grew up with. And a lot of these folks now, they come from warmer climates, tropical climates. So they want to grow hibiscus, right? This is a hibiscus. And you notice the hibiscus closed because the sunlight's gone. So hibiscus is open in the sun. If we were in Mexico, this is a big, beautiful bush, and hibiscus is great, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it. But this guy that I brought, anybody know what this is?
Banana tree.
We're in Hawaii. Nope, plumeria. This is a plumeria. Okay, so people come and buy these by the droves. Okay, I'm just sending them off to die is what I really think. However, we think that a lot at the nursery, by the way. Don't be offended, but we're like, that guy's gonna kill me. Anyway, so
What happens to it?
plumeria. So this is a 25-foot tree in Hawaii, right? And it's, it smells really nice and it's beautiful.
What's
But
the lay?
that's what you make a lay out of, correct? The plumeria is what you see the lays made out of. So can you keep them here? Yes. That's the short answer. Right? You all know. We all want what we can't have. In Brazil, they try to grow redwoods. They have this little tiny redwoods. Please grow. So, and here we want plumeria. So you always want what you can't have. So, but you can make it sort of successful. Now plants like this, I've been saving this to last. They need plants like Hawaiian bud and bloom. They need a lot of the middle number there. Okay, the phosphorus. They need this to keep their bones in check. And a plant like plumeria, you think, I'm going to water the heck out of it, I'm going to love it, I'm going to do, but no, this plant grows best on neglect. Okay?
Perennial?
It's a perennial, yeah, for sure. It's a shrub, and it wants to be dry. Never wet feet.
In a pot.
In a pot, yes, unless you're really good and you get lucky. But in a pot, for the most part, dry, dry, dry. Has very little roots. So most of its intake is through these guys. Okay. Too much water, you make them soggy, they'll rot out.
Does it do better indoors?
It does better outside this time of year. You bring it in October, it goes dormant, believe it or not. You bring it out again late February, March, depending.
Because the frost gets so many of them.
Yeah, you don't want the frost. This doesn't want the frost. So when you're going to grow specialty tropicals like this, and like this hibiscus, you're gonna want to grow another tip. If you go online, and it's a beautiful site, it's an old site. If you go online to a place called Hidden Valley Hibiscus, okay, just like the dressing, but it's hibiscus. They have something called a wake-up spray. It's the same chemical they put on your tomatoes when they're in the truck called gibberellins. But you spray that in winter if it doesn't leaf out, because a lot of these guys won't leaf back out. So that's what you do, is you spray them to get them to leaf out. That's a good trick for our neighborhood, because a lot of times they don't leaf back out. But that hormone will trigger them to leaf back out. Helps them with stress. And back to earlier, I talked about that fox farm over there. If you plant your tropical on a premium soil, it's going to bloom its head off. So there's just something about, this is imagine this, the top model of the industry. It needs more care and
That's
maintenance.
a beautiful plant.
Yes, it's a beautiful plant. Now, I have a lot of hibiscus in my yard because I do enjoy them. I put them all in pots so I can change them and move them in wintertime. Now the problem with this was such a very cold winter, I have all these beautiful flowers and hardly any leaves. Because it just never got hot enough to leaf out. So that's the gist. This came from Southern California, so we trick you, right? That's the bottom line.
When you're talking about pots, are you talking about pots that are maybe a foot in diameter across the top? and maybe a
Excellent
foot
question.
tall?
Excellent question. So you bring your baby plumeria home, you bring your, well, let's pretend this hibiscus were a baby, and you put it in this giant pot, because you know it's going to get there. You're going to kill it because it'll drown. It'll actually drown the roots. So on a plant like this, you don't want to plant this much bigger than what's here. Okay? Now a perennial, you can put this in a big old tub, it's not going to hurt it. Okay? Because it will grow, you put other plants around it, no problem. But these tropicals that are small and little babies, they'll drown. So you want to keep them in smaller pots contained. So that was a great question, thank you.
How do you water all those thousands of pots you have?
At home?
Yes.
So at home, I water, I live in the older neighborhoods there off the old golf course. And with a hose. That's 100% correct. I do not have I don't have irrigation. So I walk around every day, depends on the heat, maybe every day, every other day. It's about an hour for me, short answer. And I have.
So you never go on
Hundreds.
vacation?
So that's a great question. So every year my wife forces me to go to Tahoe. She doesn't force me, but we go every year. And always the complaint is this: I'm not leaving unless I have somebody professional to water my yard. Because I've done the trick where my own kids have watered, and of course they screw it up. So I don't let them water. Right? I've done the trick where I hired the neighbor. They forget. So nope. I usually would do this trick if I go away in my yard. I bring in 2 people, and I don't tell them I bring in 2 people. So I know that it's getting some coverage. Sometimes Steve, if you ever go to the nursery, there's an older gentleman, Steve, who's even more knowledgeable than I am. He works outside. And he'll come water my stuff for me. Very, very lucky that way. But yes, I don't leave my yard to anybody. That's very true.
Just one more question.
Sure.
I just inherited 2 or 3 big, weird cactuses
Okay.
in these pots. In fact, one's so big the pot's full.
Okay.
And so, what do you do with these things?
Give them to the next person. That's your pro tip.
That's what I thought.
Christmas gift right there. Christmas gift. Yeah. They're losing all their needles. Yeah. So plant them. You can replant them. You want to use cactus mix. I have it right here.
Buy a new pot.
Buy a new pot. Not a huge pot on cactus. They don't need a huge pot. Nice tight pot. Cactus mix. And then there's a fertilizer called Cactus Jack. It's a liquid.
And how
Or
much
cactus
do you
juice.
water those things?
So great. Did I bring it? Yes, I brought it. Okay.
This cactus is so big, it came out of the pot and it's all around the ground.
Possible. So this is a succulent. This is a jade tree. Okay, very much in the same vein. I have one of these in my front yard. It's probably 4 by 4. I water it once a year. Okay. Sometimes I don't even do that. Once a year. No, it's actually under a patio cover. It doesn't even get rain. So that's it. That's all I
hard
water.
to kill them.
Yeah, that's how we kill them. We overwater them.
Yeah, that's the only way.
Okay. So yes, your jade tree, your succulents, your cacti, you don't really need water.
So you just, like, you just get moisture from the air.
Exactly. You know what kills the cactus and the jade tree and the succulents is the winter. Right? They need that dry. They're used to that dry climate where they normally grow. Think about where they normally grow. Big swings in temperatures on a big cactus, they can take the full temperatures, which is why you put them outside. But other more tender succulents, like a jade tree here, doesn't grow in the desert, so it doesn't like that swing in temperatures. It just grows in a dry climate. So, yes, they need hardly any water, which is why they're very trendy, because they're easy. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't inherit, but our neighbors are always bringing me plants that are half dead. And now I got a ficus that I'm supposed to bring back to life
Okay.
that looks just horrible. It's 8 foot tall.
Fiddle leaf. The big one. Big leaves.
No, small leaf.
Little guys.
Yeah, the
Big.
big one.
Okay.
Big.
Really big, yeah.
And so it is in such shock. What do I do with it?
It's 2 things. Leave it in the pot, number 1, because it's already in shock. Put it outside.
It
Okay.
is outside.
You put it outside. Not full sun, but angled sun. Same with for hibiscus. So don't put your hibiscus in full sun, the 14-hour glare. Put it at angled sun. That means like on the edge of a patio or whatnot. Same with your fiddle leaf fig. So it gets angled sun for a large period of time and some warmth. And water it more often because it's outside, so maybe every day. It's got loose soil. and just let it grow. If you want to treat it with a supplement, 2 things. Back to this guy again. Okay, handful of this.
Did I put it on top?
Right on top and water it through. This really is quite the miracle cure. And if you don't want to do that, VF11 will help bring out a shock. You can do this, yeah, because you know what's great about this natural product is it won't burn. Right, so if you over fertilize by accident, right, it'll burn. But this right here, it's readily available, it's bionutrients, right? It's there. Yes.
You can use that on pretty much everything?
Pretty much everything. I don't know if I put it in my cereal, but maybe by the end of the night I'll be preaching that too. I don't know. We'll see how that goes.
What's that pretty pink one in front of the moment?
Oh, that's the one that I said we were going to get to that we haven't got to. But hang on, before I leave the tropics. This is a succulent. This is one of the cactus succulent spots. This is beautiful. It's called Calandrinia. Very popular in our area right now. It has these beautiful, it's not white oak, there's not sun in here, hot pink flowers. This plant, once they're established, they bloom almost 100% of our year. Okay, and they're very tolerant of all sorts of conditions. Neglect, underwater, overwater. This is a Calandrinia. So think of calendar and then Drinia. Okay, great plant. I recommend it if you want something in a tough spot that you don't really know what to plant in, it gets a lot of sun, and you really can't get to it, maybe with a hose, but once a week or so. This does need water more than once a year. And this is in the purslane family, so if you ever eaten purslanes. So it's actually related to this guy, distantly. It'll produce like mad. So don't be afraid to try this. It's
Every time it comes out, it's like looking at you.
I know.
Yeah. My antenna.
It looks like something from Toy Story.
What's that? You certainly can overwater succulents. And if you do, you'll kill them. Right? They literally suffocate in the water. They just look at this. This is fairly new. This is called angel wing siniqua. It's a Dusty Miller family. Remember Dusty Miller, which is still quite popular? So this is a perennial version. And it is fabulous, right? It stays this white. Angel wing siniqua. SENECIO. So this is sort of a cross. It feels like a succulent. It doesn't need much water. It takes high heat. You should definitely water it once a week at least, if not twice. And I'm actually going to pass it around because it feels soft.
Dusty Miller is just so.
Oh my goodness.
Beautiful plant. Beautiful plant. Here's another pro tip. So I bought that last year because the first year is available, and I thought it was more like a perennial, so I cut it back in winter. I shouldn't have because that growth was very slow to recover. So don't cut it back. It's going to get ugly in winter, but just leave it alone. It'll do its thing. Yep. We're almost through the plants. We're getting there. All right. Here we go. Sorry to keep it for so long. This is your classic bulb. Okay? So a bulb basically means it stores its energy in a bulb. Okay. It's actually, when it does, it's 100% dormant. So a dahlia is a summer bulb. Means that it comes out in the summer to do its thing. This is a sort of a dinner plate dahlia. So dahlias are beautiful flowers. Every size, every shape. Some are dinner plates, which are the size of my head. I actually prefer to grow pom-poms, which are little tiny guys that look like honeycombs. Okay? So they have dark leaves, they have green leaves. Very easy to grow. This is definitely if you're a beginner gardener. Bulbs in general are very easy. Always start with bulbs. Now, some things to be aware of. They do need deadheading. So once they flower, you cut them back so the next flowers will come. Okay? And now this will get powdery mildew. So it will mildew out as the season goes on, which means those leaves turn white. And then the very first frost, it's going to go black. Just cut it out. You can set it anywhere. So yes.
When do you deadhead?
When they start to look, yeah,
They look sad.
they'll look sad and brown. And you will deadhead with a bypass pruner.
Yeah, I like those.
This is what it's called a bypass pruner. It has a flat edge and a sharp edge. Okay, this is what we prune roses with.
Yeah.
Things like dahlias there. This is a snipper. This is things that we cut like herbs with, like cilantro and chives. Both edges are sharp. So snipper we do for that. And then if you have one of those big old rose bushes that have a huge cane, you want a lopper. It's really a giant version of this, but you get the leverage to really get those bigger things. So those are, if you need to have pruners at home, everybody needs to have this pruner. And secondarily, you should have this pruner. From there, depends on what you're growing.
I'm very.
See, why do you use chainsaw? If you're making ice sculptures, you know.
I'm sorry, I'm very ignorant about plants.
Yeah.
When you did it, you just turn up blossom or you turn up still.
Well, on a plant like this, you deadhead all the way to the leaves.
What about geraniums?
Oh, good thing you asked.
And roses down to the leaves then.
Roses down to the first 5 pairs, so 5 leaflets. But in the summer, by the way, not in winter. So geranium, which you just mentioned, you cut it back to here. Right to about where that first growth is. That's all it needs. Get the stemmy part out. Okay?
Geraniums are hardy plants.
Geraniums are very hardy. So this is an ivy geranium. It's called the Blizzard series. This is a pink blizzard. So in our valley, this thing blooms like you would not believe. Okay? I recommend everybody try and grow a pink blizzard geranium. Awesome plant. This is. Huh?
Except when it freezes, then my.
No. Even if it freezes, you can cut them all the way back and they usually will recover. All the way from the root. This is a zonal geranium. This is the geraniums we're used to. They are more of a clumping geranium. They also get budworm. These do not get budworm, but these get budworm. Okay, ivy geraniums don't, zonals do. Budworm is a little tiny worm that will eat the buds, literally. People are like, why are my buds gone? Why are they holy? Budworm. They love petunias too. So, zonal geranium, ivy geranium, great. Now I'm going to wrap up. If you can't garden at all, and you kill everything, I brought a few flowers for you.
Well, it's raining. I have those.
Okay, if you really can't grow a thing, agapantha. Okay, throw it on the driveway. It'll grow. It's also a bulb, by the way.
How long should the agapanthus last?
Too long.
There are ones that never
For me.
Good job. I appreciate that you killed them. Not me. Okay. Snails love them. This is basically a snail hotel, just so you know. You have to really knock them down or really dry them out. Generally, they last forever. Once they're established, if they get established, very long. This is garlic, society garlic, very hard to kill. Okay. This is an Aronimus, which you've seen all these for years. Very hard to kill. Same with this guy. This is a big family. Pittosporum, another big family. These are all your foundation plants. Tough to kill. Okay, so there's definitely things for those of you that think you struggle. We have a plant for that too.
Matt,
Yes.
if I stop by Armstrong and bring a photo of my grapevine, I don't know how to trim it.
Sure, you could bring it on down. Grapevines grow quite large and prolific.
Oh, you know what, it took forever, I've had it for 5 years. It's now finally getting grapes on it.
Yeah, that's normal.
Why did it take it so long?
They generally start 4 to 5 years. That's very
Really?
common. Yep. That's why if you're a
And
vineyard,
my daughter
Vineyard's
is
4 years minimum.
ecstatic.
yeah, it takes a long time. You could fight the raccoons
But
and the birds
it's
for
just
it.
like growing wild.
Yes, so you prune them mostly in winter all the way back, like
All
a
the
rose.
way back?
Yeah, but right now you can just hack on them, shape them.
And make sure you have more grapes.
Yeah. Next year you'll have more grapes if you prune it
Well, I
properly.
know, but
Are they purple or green?
I don't know, they're little, they're still green. We're trying to keep squirrels away from
Oh,
them.
well, that's.
All right, we got one more minute for any last minute questions. Who's gonna be my last one? You got it.
Debbie,
You're it.
getting rid of weeds.
Oh, yeah.
We're all frightened about Roundup and we don't want to use it if we can help it. So somebody gave me a recipe using
Vinegar.
vinegar and salt and
Baking
Epsom
soda.
salts and a little bit of mild dishwashing soap, put it in a sprayer and spray it where you want to. Well,
So here's my
what do
story.
you think?
You ready? Roundup. So yes, if you're bathing in Roundup, it is bad for you. If you're using Roundup every day and you're using Roundup unprotected, then Roundup more than likely is bad for you, right? That's sort of the gist of I can't say the word, glycophosphate, whatever it is. So, but if you're just killing the weeds and the paver stones that are far, wear your gloves, okay? Shoot your Roundup once in a great while. Don't overuse it. Don't do it in the wind. Don't do it on your vegetables. Don't do it on anything you're going to eat. The Roundup is still a usable product. But there are other products out there like Weed Beer Ultra. We sell that. That's a more, it doesn't have the glycophosphate in it, whatever it's called, glycophin. I forget what it is. The stuff they're suing for. It is still effective. It just takes longer to see results. So that's the bottom line. And you could use the recipes online, like the baking sodas and the vinegar. It just would take longer to get there. Okay. All right.
Can I just say that if anybody hasn't been to Armstrong, you need to go into that, because not only are the plants and the grounds beautiful, but inside they have the neatest gifts.
We do have a lot of gifts, yes.
Yeah, it is. It's really good.
And our biggest claim to fame, if you read about us, is knowledge base, right? We all have a knowledge base in there. And the reason why I wear a green shirt is because I have more knowledge than what they say a brown shirt. But even the brown shirts have some knowledge.
Matt, our gardener has one last.
What you got?
Oh,
Go for it.
I didn't know who the gardener was. Where do you work? I've been going there for 15 years.
I
Never
work-
seen you.
I work from 5 to 7. I'm the closer, and then I work Saturdays. I used to work Saturday and Sunday, but now fine. Saturdays
5 to
in the
7.
morning and 5 to 7. I'm the relief pitcher. I close up for everybody, so they can go home.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Actually, I'm not a gardener, but my wife has like little pots in
Yeah.
the patio, and she's doing something. And after this talk, I'm interested in gardening. So
There you go.
I made some.
That's the purpose.
You know, you have words like I experienced conversion. Okay. So,
We got a job for you up front.
okay, thank you, Matt, for your interesting and informative presentation. So I hope everybody enjoyed Q&A session as well. I think it's like it kept going on. It's like
I wasn't kidding about the 3 hours.
No, we should.
that means like you're enjoying the talk. That's great. I hope you take learnings and lessons from tonight's talk and try them in your own garden and see the fruits of your labor. At the same time, as we close, I invite you to take this time and reflect upon another garden, not the physical garden, but the mental and spiritual garden inside of you. As much as we spend time in watering, fertilizing, and nurturing our garden and our house, let us look also into ourselves and see whether it's well with our soul. Let us pull out some weeds in our hearts, if there is any, weeds of envy, hatred, and worry. After pulling them out, let us ask God to fill these new empty spaces with His words and grace so that our soul may be watered, nurtured, and growing every day in a new way. Just as it makes us visitors and passers-by happy to see the garden full of flowers and well-grown plants, let us take care of our garden, the garden inside of us, so that whoever comes in contact with us may see it, be delighted in it, and even inspired by it. And you know, what is planted in soil bears fruit. The same with our little works of kindness. And once again, I appreciate that for giving us a great presentation. I also thank God for giving us this opportunity to learn and grow together. Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for allowing us to have this event where we learn from Matt, shared our experiences, and inspired one another. Bless these beautiful minds who came here, who want to take good care of their garden and at the same time the garden in their hearts. Let those gardens blossom and bear good fruits. Let them be the place of healing, restoration, and rejuvenation. Above all, help us to be nurtured by you, by your word, and by your guidance, so that this ancient promise may become the promise given to us today. The Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your needs in parched places and make your bones strong, and you shall be like a water garden, like a spring of water whose waters never fail. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.